Hey everybody, it's Jason with Parallel Reality coming back with you here today with an article from The Federalist. Let's see when this was dated. It's dated April 25th, and it's entitled, America Isn't the First Empire Doomed by Open Borders. Now, with all this stuff going on at the southern border, even though no one talks about the northern border, and it's, not as bad, but still bad, you've heard a lot of talk about, this is like this civilization or this civilization. So here's an article that actually talks about it, and of course it's going to bring up the obvious one, which is Rome, which is the pictures you see there. It says, like empires before us, we have lost our cultural confidence and moorings, increasing the risk of being overrun by newcomers. And that's, so he's using the left-wing language there, that they decided to start calling the illegal aliens newcomers, like as if it's like some sort of, we're just welcoming these random people here, and thank you for coming. It's like, no, they're invading our country. But anyway, it says, no subject is as central to America's future, and no subject gets to the heart of the failure of our current regime more than immigration policy. As a result, few subjects are as riddled with taboos in their public discussion. What will happen when the ethnic composition of large parts of America is transformed in ways Americans' European founders never could have foreseen? And in the interim, what will happen to whites as they continue to lose political power amid their shrinking proportion of the population as anti-white rhetoric and actions accelerate? Whether or not you believe that demography is destiny, these fundamental demographic questions cannot simply be papered over with happy talk. The reality is that the white population, and thus the white voting share of the population, is rapidly diminishing. The fact that whites and whiteness are so frequently publicly demonized in a country with a current white voting supermajority does not inspire confidence in how society is likely to treat whites when they are a much diminished minority. There's a graphic t-shirt that's popular in Indian country and on some left-wing college campuses. It comes in several versions, but the most popular is several Native Americans in traditional dress hoisting rifles while looking sternly at the camera. It says Homeland Security, fighting illegal immigration since 1492, it reads. Another version with the same picture says, we should have built a wall. I chuckled the first time I saw one of these shirts. It's a clever slogan on its own terms that makes the point that Native Americans, of course, were here when the first white settlers arrived. Of course they were. It says, but upon further thought, I realized the statement it made was profound. It just cut in the opposite direction of the way it was intended. While Native Americans have arguably benefited from joining the most globe-spanning power that has ever existed, they also paid a heavy price. Today, there are almost 10 million self-identified Native Americans in the United States, as well as millions of other white-identified Americans with at least some Native American ancestry. But Native Americans learned, much to their regret, the consequences of the failure to protect their border, their language, and their culture. Their failure to do so should cause whites to redouble their efforts not to make the same mistake, says America's Wide Open Gates. For as long as there have been political communities, immigration, ultimately, who is allowed to join a political community, has been a central concern. It was certainly a lively debate in the days of ancient Rome, which many scholars have argued fell in large part thanks to poorly controlled immigration. And some of the books that I've read have echoed that as well, because they just kind of let everybody in. And then I think it was, Caracalla? Emperor Caracalla was the one who said just amnesty for everybody or something. I could be totally wrong on that. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but you get the point. That is a thing that still happened, though. This distinguished English historian, Peter Heather, that's actually the guy whose book I read, of King's College in London, is one of those scholars who has argued for the centrality of immigration in causing the fall of the Roman Empire. This interpretation was echoed by former British Prime Minister Boris Johnson, who said, when the Roman Empire fell, Johnson remarked on a 2021 trip to Rome, it was largely as a result of uncontrolled immigration. The empire could no longer control its borders. People came in from the east, all over the place, and we went into a dark ages. Well, the dark ages wasn't because of necessarily this, and the name is a bit of a misnomer. It's just the dark ages because there wasn't like any major technological advances for like 1,000 years up until like the Renaissance. That's why it's called the dark ages. Not because like just things stopped happening or whatever, or the Romans went away. Because Romans had not always been so lax about immigration. At the peak of Roman power, immigration was only offered to conquered peoples, and even then, most were barred from settling in the Italian heartland. As another writer, Annalisa Morelli, pointed out, it was the Roman Empire's saving of thousands and thousands, some say upward of 200,000, of Goth tribal refugees fleeing from the Huns in 376 that led to Rome's sack less than a century later. After a variety of mutually broken promises between the two sides, the Goths turned on their Roman rescuers at the Battle of Adrianople. Is that how you pronounce it? If not, let me know, because, again, I don't like mispronouncing things. And that was in 378. A massacre of Romans that saw the deaths of more than 30,000 and would eventually lead to the fall of the Western Roman Empire. While few suggest that today's immigrants have plans to militarily besiege America, it does not take a leap of imagination to extend the analogy to our own times. Like Rome, we have lost our cultural confidence and moorings, which dramatically increases our risk of being overrun both literally and metaphorically by newcomers, and again, he's using the word newcomers. So you can say illegal aliens, it's okay. It says, as the Christian conservative writer Rod Dreher wrote pointedly on the essential question facing the West, that the massive migration of barbarians into the Roman Empire in the 4th through 6th centuries changed European civilization permanently. They caused the fall of the Western Roman Empire and, centuries later, the rise of a new civilization there, based on the descendants of old Roman stock and Christianized Germanic tribes. Will the latter-day descendants of those Europeans be able to hold back the barbarian invasions from Africa, by far the largest source of coming global population growth in the 21st century? Or will they have to do as the Romans did and absorb the strangers and, over centuries, create a new civilization? Says one can argue that the latter strategy is the correct one, both practically and morally, but either way, one cannot deny it is a choice. Today, white people in America and throughout the West are throughout the West are facing the prospect of permanent minority status in countries founded by their ancestors. American, and increasingly European, immigration policies are not copied anywhere else in the world. China tightly controls its borders, letting in only a few thousand legal immigrants per year. In Japan, despite having the world's most rapidly aging population and a shrinking workforce, just 2% of its population are immigrants, most from ethnically and culturally similar Asian countries. Immigrants make up less than 1% of Mexico's population. Yet increasingly, whites find themselves self-ghettoized in America and Europe, with the new leaders of the Coalition of the Ascendant increasing daily in number, using the institutions and socio-political mechanisms developed from European traditions in the West to seize political power at the expense of Americans of European origin. In 1938, future British Prime Minister Winston Churchill published While England Slept, a collection of his speeches delivered over a decade that warned of the country's dangerous passivity in the wake of German rearmament. By the time the British public and political class took to his warning seriously, it was almost too late, and I think we know what happened after 1938. It says most contemporary immigration writers on the right, this one included, have sounded similar warnings for many years about the dangers of America's wide-open border and about the risks we faced as a society as we rapidly transform the demographics of the American people. To this point, while our writings have been received enthusiastically on the grassroots right, most conservative politicians continue to sleep peacefully. It remains to be seen whether they can be awakened from their slumber in time to save their country for their posterity. And yeah, I mean, that's something that could happen in my lifetime. I got plenty of years left, but I can see something happening where just country's gone because of this stuff. Where was the... Here we go. So yeah, look up, if you're wondering how, like, in a lot more detail, what happened with Rome and their, I guess, illegal immigration, if you want to call it that. Search for Peter Heather, his book. I can't see the book on my bookshelf from where I'm sitting. My head has turned looking there. I can't see it. I got stuff in the way. But there is a book. It's not specifically about that, but I think it's just about the fall of Rome, and he talks about, the reasons, but this is definitely one of the reasons why Rome fell. So check that out. But also, what do you think about this? Definitely let me know in the comments below. I mean, do you think we're on the way to being gone? And I don't care about necessarily the white part about it. I thought that was kind of bordering on, stuff I'm not comfortable talking about. Bad things, I would say. But I mean, just the whole point where it's like your culture is going to be erased. Let me know what you think about this in the comments below. Like, share, subscribe, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.